Did the Philippines make a good deal by getting 1% off the 20% import tariff imposed by the U.S. over no duties to any products shipped to the Philippines? The government's trade officials think so. Special Assistant to the President for Investment and Economic Affairs, Frederick Go, says the 19% tariff imposed on Philippine exports to the U.S. is a universal tariff. It's also the second lowest in Asia after Singapore's 10%. The Philippines tariff agreement with the U.S. also retains exclusions, particularly on agriculture products, to protect local farmers and fishermen. Vietnam, which settled for 20% tariff, and Indonesia with 19% will open their entire market to the U.S. without restrictions. Go also explained why 19% tariff for the Philippines is a good number.
Bakit po ito importante? Importante ito dahil kapag mababa ang ating tarifa, makaka-attract po tayo ng mga foreign direct investors in the Philippines para magtayo ng mga pabrika, magtayo ng mga negosyo sa Pilipinas para makapag-export ng kanilang mga produkto sa Amerika.
Go also clarified the tariff would be paid not by Filipinos but by U.S. citizens who will import and buy products from the Philippines.
Ang magbabayad po nitong taripa ay hindi po tayo. Ang magbabayad ng taripa na to ay ang mga Amerikano, ang mga importers, ang mga buyers ng mga produkto galing sa buong mundo. So sa huli, ang magbabayad po nito mga tarifa ay mga consumers po ng Amerika. Mga mamamayan ng Amerika na bibili ng mga produkto na inimport nila, sila po ang magbabayad nito mga tarifa.
Now let's discuss this trade deal from the perspective of a former U.S. ambassador to the Philippines. And joining us tonight via Zoom is Ambassador Harry K. Thomas. Good evening. Welcome to The Big Story, Ambassador.
Good evening, and thank you for having me.
May we compliment you first on your pink barong?
Thank you.
Well,
It was a gift.
well, you have been critical of the deal we struck with U.S. President Donald Trump. And you say what added insult to injury was a better deal that Japan had immediately after that meeting in the White House.
Yes, first let me start by offering my prayers and thoughts for all of those affected by the flooding in Metro Manila and other parts of the country, including my relatives. So the previous segment broke my heart, but I'm glad that the Philippines is finding ways to save lives of its citizens. Yes, President Marcos got the best deal he could have at this time from President Trump, whose aim is not to assist the Philippines, but to have all products, as many products as possible, made in the United States. So while it was the best deal that the Philippines could have had, long term, I expect this will hurt the Philippines.
Ambassador, I wanted to get your thoughts because you also gave some recommendations. And I was thinking, you know what, he has a point. Our GSP, or General Preferred System of Preferential, rather,
Yes.
of preferences, already lapsed in 2020. And you were suggesting why not pursue renewing that instead?
Yes, that is up to the Congress. And so I would expect the Philippine embassy and government to lobby our Congress to have that renewed. It would it could add 5 to 6% to your exports to the United States. If you look at 2023 and 2024, your exports were about $14 billion to the U.S. This year, we expect it to only be about $12 billion to the U.S., and that is because of tariffs. So although Americans will pay, as the Philippine government official said, for the tariffs,
Right.
it will also hurt Filipinos.
True. But what is the likelihood of a GSP being revisited by an administration that is really averse to all these preferences and also sees a trade deficit as bad, as necessarily harmful?
In the short term, no. You're 100% right. But in the long term, that's why we have elections in this country. Uh, Next year, by the midterms, that is something that if President Trump loses his majority, you could press the Democrats to pass, but you have to start lobbying them now and educating the American people. After all, you have several million Filipino Americans here who can act on behalf of the importance of importing goods from the Philippines.
Well, Ambassador, some observers say that President Marcos got what he could under tough circumstances. Even President Trump called him a tough negotiator. But in your view, was there any leverage that President Marcos could have used to negotiate a better deal?
It was extreme. It would have been extremely difficult at this time. So I'm not criticizing President Marcos. The only leverage he has is mutual defense treaty access for the U.S. military, and cutting that off would hurt, especially with Chinese aggression in the Western Philippine Sea. So I understand that, but that is why I would urge the Philippines to work with ASEAN on a unified approach, work with the U.S. Congress, both parties, states, especially the states that receive Philippine goods, whether it's electronics, which is the majority, or agricultural, tuna, which is the second, to change minds over time.
Ambassador, what about critical minerals and semiconductors? Is there any way that you're seeing that we can leverage these two sectors to maybe negotiate something better? Perhaps not an FTA or a GSP.
Yes, FTA is off. Well, I would love that. That's not going to happen anytime soon. But recall, under WTO, about 30% of Philippine electronic exports gets access without tariffs. So that is already a very good deal. But the rest you have to look at. The U.S. is, Japan and other nations are going to purchase more Boeings. But remember, some of those Boeing parts are made in Baguio. So why not work with Japan on those issues? And that's why look at every aspect. Very, very few things, especially in the electronics industry, is just made in the Philippines before it's exported to the United States.
And Ambassador, I caught that article where you also mentioned that businesses, especially in garments and agriculture, already run on thin margins. So can you explain how
Yes.
a 1% difference in tariffs could impact these businesses?
Yes, thank you for that question. The apparel and agricultural industry is the most at risk. Buyers look for the cheapest prices they can get anywhere in the world. It's very integrated where they can get products from. And we've already seen in June a rise in prices in the United States on apparel. So that may cause American importers to look for other markets.
Well, we're not really very much a garment exporter any longer, actually, Ambassador, but processed agricultural products like VCO, those will be affected.
You're correct, but you still export about $400 million a year in apparel.
Okay. Ambassador, President Marcos did not really go home super empty-handed. He did bring home some $30 billion in aid. There's also been some pledges, although the jury's still out whether those will
30 billion
materialize.
pesos.
Pesos, sorry. 30 billion pesos in aid. And of course, the Luzon Economic Corridor, that was kind of on the ringer for a while, but now it's back in play. Do you think these will materialize, apart from the aid? The 30 billion pesos in aid?
I do not know, but if you look at it, in the first 6 months of the Trump administration, little to nothing has been done on the Luzon Economic Corridor. And that is Philippines, Japan, and the United States. We will have to see that that would be something important if it were able to be done. The details are sketchy on investment. President Trump is extremely transactional. You saw that Japan
Yes.
pledged to do $500 million for a sovereign wealth fund, investing in the United States.
Correct.
So Congress would have to, the President of the United States just can't give those funds away. Congress would have to approve that. It's not in this year's budget, so you're looking at next fiscal year's budget.
Okay, and what about, I'm sure you've heard of the two projects, defense projects here in the Philippines, the boat repair facility in Oyster Bay in Palawan, as well as that proposed ammunition hub or depot in Subic Bay. Are these in any way kind of that we can use as leverage?
I think those are critically important to the United States as well as the Philippines for security against Chinese aggression. I think that everything is up for negotiation. And if I were in the Philippines, while I'm not sure I would use the term leverage, I would stress to the United States the importance of access, how much you need it, how much a critical ally the Philippines is in looking for deals and breaks in other areas.
So in that department, we still can squeeze it a little bit more.
I would advocate that. You must try.
Well, in terms of
It's
the
very important.
in terms of the Mutual Defense Treaty, Ambassador, how can we get bigger military assistance from the United States? In the past years, it's not been really huge compared to being the longest ally of the U.S. here in this part of the world. Our relationship goes over 100 years.
Yes. I think that's why I keep stressing a whole of government approach, lobbying the president, Congress, governors, because last year today, 1 year ago today, Austin and Blinken, when they were under Biden, proposed $500 million in aid to the Philippines for military. Congress whittled that down to $363 million. And Trump is using that as aid. It was really Biden's aid. So you have to get Congress to increase the aid. And this is critically important because right now the Philippines gets military assistance not only from the United States, but other countries. But the challenge is when you have planes or jets from several countries, you have to buy spare parts from these countries. Things get discontinued. It gets old. It's very difficult to maintain 5 or 6 different types of planes or tanks or helicopters. And that is a continuing challenge for the Philippines. I also think with the use of social media and others, please educate my fellow Americans on the critical importance of the Philippines and that you're our longest ally in South Asia, if not Asia.
Right. Well, we thank you for waking up early to talk to us. What time is it in Florida?
It is 8:11. I would just like to say one last thing.
Go ahead,
morning.
Ambassador.
The USAID was cut off. That was over $100 million in aid, much of it for education. But $6 million of that aid that was cut off was to help the Philippines mitigate against floods and flooding and typhoon. So you may have, President Marcos may have come home with some aid, but you lost over 100 million. A lot of that in the critical education realm for children. And the last thing, please look at the immigration status, the boarding of the ship where Filipinos with valid crew visas were deported to the United States is something alarming. But thank you
is.
for having me.
It is. Well, we are happy to have an advocate over there in the U.S. Thank you so much, former U.S. Ambassador to the Philippines, Harry K. Thomas.